It's that time of year, football season, and not just football season, fantasy football season. My team, not doing too hot right now. I'm actually on the treadmill, take my mind off that so I don't watch the games, stare at my phone, obsess over every little detail about who should I have started? Why did I drop this guy? Why didn't I make that trade? I'm just going to focus on this. My quarterback got hurt today, so I got to pick up a quarterback. Always fun. I'm calling the big guns. I'm calling in the guy that won me 2 league championships, Eli Manning. What? You guessed it. This episode of As You Eat It is a special tribute to the former starting quarterback for the New York Football Giants, a 2-time, not once, but twice, a 2-time winner of the Lombardi Trophy, Mr. Eli Manning. Now, as Giant fans, we knew this day was coming when they traded Beckham, when they drafted Daniel Jones, when they started Geno Smith. We knew the clock was ticking. And Father Time is undefeated. He's 38 years old. I get it. Eli Manning might be his time to go. Might be his time to retire. But that doesn't mean we can't say thanks for the memories, thanks for the achievements, and thanks for those Lombardi trophies. Now, how would you say thank you to a man like Eli Manning? You could donate to his favorite charity. That's always a good call. You could stash him on your fantasy team, because this could be just a 1-week thing, just like it was with Geno Smith. I wouldn't recommend that, but you definitely could. Or you could cook his favorite meal. But how would you know his favorite meal? The internet! That's how. I found an article that Eli Manning participated in where he said his favorite dish was from the Ajax Diner in Oxford, Mississippi. It was pork chops, mashed potatoes and gravy, butter beans, and a green salad, no tomatoes. So I'm going to take that dish and I'm going to make it my own today and pay tribute to Eli Manning the way I know how. So that's why I'm making smothered pork chops with rustic mashed potatoes and stewed butter beans with tomatoes. Sorry, Eli. And for dessert, I'm paying tribute to his heritage as a native of New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm taking 2 classic New Orleans desserts and I'm putting them together. We have pecan raisin bread pudding, topped with bananas Foster, and a sour cream caramel. Since life is short and we need to eat dessert first, let's start with making that bread pudding. Cut the ends off 1 loaf of day-old baguette and cut or tear into bite-sized manageable pieces. Since bread pudding is more of a method than a recipe, here are some tips and tricks. Use day-old bread whenever you can. That'll soak up the custard so much better. And avoid things like off-the-shelf sandwich bread and sourdough for this recipe. The flavor and texture just won't be right. For the custard, 4 eggs go into our bowl here. Notice how I'm cracking on a flat surface and then transferring over. You get a nice clean separation that way and no shell, unless you get a stubborn one like this guy. Next up, a quart of half and half goes in, followed by some light brown sugar. You can use dark if you like. Half a cup, followed by a 1/4 cup of real maple syrup. Use the real deal, guys. No additives, no corn syrup. 2 tablespoons of pumpkin spice goes in. If you have the individual spices, go for it. A dash of vanilla, then whisk to combine. Before transferring into an airtight container, make sure you get all that air, push it down. Good. Into the fridge it goes, a minimum of overnight before combining with our bread. Next up, golden raisins, about a 1/4 cup. That's 2 of those little boxes, and about a half a cup of honey roasted pecans. I wanted praline, but store didn't have them. Next up, get in, mix it up. Mix it up, use your hands. Transfer to a greased casserole, flatten and level it out. Bake at 350 for 45 minutes or until a toothpick comes out clean. For this riff on bananas Foster, melt 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter in a medium skillet over medium heat. Then add in half a cup of light brown sugar. You can certainly use dark brown sugar if you have it. Stir to combine and let it get nice and caramelly. Swirl it around, make sure that it doesn't burn. Very nice. Then add in about a tablespoon of cinnamon and then stir that in to combine.
starting to darken. That's going to be a nice flavor contrast. A pinch of sea salt, and then in with the booze. Usually it's rum and banana liqueur. I used cinnamon whiskey today. Next up, 1 banana sliced on the bias, nestled in like so. If you cut it on the bias, you'll have more surface area, and that's what you want. Zest in about half an orange, and then flip them over once they're tender, about a minute, maybe a minute and a half. Look at that. Very nice. A little bit of the bubbly. Then take out your bananas and top your bread pudding. Take out what's left and then mount with a teaspoon of sour cream. Stir to combine. Nice and even. And then sauce your plate.
Let's get to work on those pork chops next.
We're going to dry rub our pork chops in about a tablespoon of smoked paprika, 2 teaspoons of white pepper, half a teaspoon of cumin, a tablespoon each of garlic powder and onion powder, followed by salt and pepper. I'm using a 3 pepper medley, about 20 grinds, and a tablespoon and a half of coarse sea salt. Mix to combine before coating our pork chops on both sides, like so. I'm using 2-inch thick boneless pork chops. Check out the marbling on these bad boys. Flip them on over. Nice little rubberoo there. Make sure we get the sides too. That way every little bit of this pork is screaming with flavor. Put it in a zip top bag like so and store it in the fridge.
Refrigerate the pork chops for a minimum of 1 hour. Overnight is best. While those are chilling, let's stew some beans.
Roughly chop 1 link of andouille sausage. Andouille is a Cajun smoked pork sausage that you usually find in things like gumbo. If you can't find it in your area, you can definitely sub in hot Italian sausage, or you can omit it. Just add about a teaspoon of smoked paprika for the flavor. Add a tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil to a heated skillet. Give that a little swirl, then add in our andouille to saute for 5 minutes while we break down the rest of the vegetables. 1 green bell pepper, and a neat little trick, cut the cheeks like so, and the seeds stay with the stem. Not bad. Now slice down and then roughly chop, making sure you're using your thumb to drive the food and backing up. Focus on your technique here. Don't rush. Go slow. Safety first. Next up, half an onion, planks, sticks, and then cubes. 1 root of celery, cut in half, then down again, then slice it. That's still a little too big for what I want to do, so let's give it a nice little rough chop. Use your shoulder and really drive that in and give it a nice little rough mince. That's nice. Next up, 2 cloves of garlic, smash it down to get the skins off, and then slice it up. That andouille a stir, very nice, browning really nicely. Add in your veggies and then cook until translucent. That should be about 5 to 7 minutes or so, making sure you're stirring constantly. Next up, a drained 15-ounce can of fire-roasted tomatoes. If there's a little bit of residual liquid, that's fine. It'll just marry in with the rest of the vegetables as they break down. Time to season it up with a little pepper medley, followed by some dried thyme and salt to taste. That's when you'd add the paprika if you were subbing in the paprika. Next up, a 15-ounce can, drained and rinsed, of butter beans. Stir to combine, and let stew for about 10 to 15 minutes or until soft.
Let's mash some taters, cook some pork, and put it all together.
Clean and scrub 2 russet potatoes. I'm using the skin in this preparation since I like the texture of it, but you can certainly peel them if you want. Cut in half, then again into quarters, and then into relatively even-sized pieces. You don't need to break out your ruler or anything, but definitely focus on eyeballing it till it's about even. They'll cook at the same rate that way. Now's an opportunity to really add some flavor, so rather than cooking the potatoes in cold water, I'm using chicken broth instead. Just going to cover the potatoes and then bring to a boil and cook until fork tender, about 25 minutes or so. In the meantime, we'll heat a medium skillet over medium heat for about 5 minutes while we deal with our pork chops. Take your room temperature pork chops out of the zip top bag and blot them dry. If they're room temperature, they will cook more evenly. Next up, we're going to put a little vegetable oil on our pork on both sides so they don't splatter when we put them in the pan to sear. Sear them for about 3 to 5 minutes per side, then finish in a 350-degree oven for about 20 minutes. Drain the cooked potatoes and give yourself a nice little chicken broth facial while you're at it. Give that a little shake, and then into the bowl with 2 tablespoons of butter, a tablespoon of sour cream, salt, and pepper medley to taste before giving it a mash. Time to make the sauce for our pork chops. I reserved a quarter of that large green bell pepper from before. We're going to slice that up, but you can certainly use 1 small green bell pepper sliced. I'm going to cut an onion in half, take the ends off, peel and slice. Now this is the important part. We're using the same pan that we seared the pork in. Those little brown bits, we want to get them off the pan and into our sauce. Add in 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil and then our peppers and onions and start to saute those up. Really get those moving and really start to scrub that fond or those brown bits off the base of the pan. Get that into our sauce. Get it translucent. Very nice. Add in a pinch of salt and pepper to taste. Some dried thyme. You can certainly use fresh if you have it. And then in with the liquid base of our sauce, chicken broth. About a cup, it's about twice around this pan. And then we're going to fortify that sauce with the pork itself. We want to get that flavor into the sauce. And we're going to let that simmer for about 3 to 5 minutes before we let the pork rest and then slice it. Traditional plating style is the pork chop smothered in the sauce. But I'm going to do something a little bit fancier. We're going to slice it up. Now we have our sauce here, and we're going to fortify that with some sour cream. Stir that around. It's about a tablespoon of sour cream. And we're ready to go. Let's sauce this bad boy and eat.
Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed watching the video as much as I enjoyed making it for you. And thank you, Eli Manning. Thank you for the memories. Thank you for what you've done for the New York Giants organization. And most importantly, thank you for those 2 Lombardi trophies. As always, like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow me on Instagram, same name as You Eat It. Follow me on Facebook, same name as You Eat It. A couple of new wrinkles this season. You can now come see me live and in living color. I'm doing culinary demos at Williams-Sonoma Columbus Circle 3 days a week. Make sure you follow my Instagram so you know where I'm going to be. And if you would like to be a producer of As You Eat It and make some contributions to the cause, you can now follow me on Patreon. The link is right there. As always, cook how you want to cook, eat how you want to eat, pay tribute how you want to pay tribute, eat as you eat it. Now if you excuse me, it's time for kickoff. Let's go Giants.